Again, and welcome back to the Animite Tales podcast. We've got Sam and Kane with me today.
Hey.
One day, an intro will not be ruined by either myself or my co-hosts. One day.
No.
Today we're just going to be having like a relatively casual chat podcast. So we're pretty much going to be talking about like anything that we sort of have discovered or talked about, or even just something that we wanted to talk about on this podcast about like special abilities in fiction, and even just some of our more interesting sort of things that we like. We might talk about the game for a bit. We might talk about other bits of pop culture, whether it's movies or anime or TV shows. Even if it's books or comics, we'll probably get onto a bundle of different topics. But this particular episode doesn't necessarily have any particular drive behind it other than just talking about special abilities or special powers or power systems that interest us. So that's sort of like roughly what we're going to talk about today. The one reason I brought up this conversation, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this episode, was actually because that like something that I've realized is that like obviously like new things are coming out this last couple of weeks. We just got the newest trailers out. So we've got the trailer of Spider-Man, the newest trailer of the first ever trailer of Secret Wars. And we've also gotten a few other sort of sneak peeks at some things. Now, obviously, I won't really talk about them here because there might be some spoilers ahead, so I'm not going to do that. So we're going to try and keep this as relatively spoiler-free as possible in terms of anything and everything. We're only going to talk about the stuff that is sort of like we find interesting. We'll try and stick away from talking about any spoilers in any shows. But those are pretty good. Those are pretty good trailers. I recommend seeing them if you're interested in watching the trailers, or at least be aware that there are now real trailers of these two things out now. So be very aware, because obviously some people make fake ones, and now the real ones are out. You probably don't want to get spoiled. So yeah. But yeah. Anyway, so I thought about this. I was talking with you about this, Kane. That like obviously, it's nice to often have like casual chats, because one of the reasons why this system was built was because of the continuous pop culture question of if you could have any superpower in the world. If you could have any superpower, what would it be, and why, and what interests you about it, and stuff like that. And so it's one of the reasons why Animite Tales was made. Because we wanted a tabletop game that literally answers all those questions and gets you to sort of explore the both mechanical and roleplay aspects of having these special abilities and being a superhero or a supervillain.
Yeah. Well, also we haven't done this in a while, and I'm going to call us all out and say none of us prepared anything that we should have. So,
Damn it.
How dare you? I have sheets and sheets of paper here.
Alright, come on, Sham. Show us then. Where is it?
I mean, they're blank pieces of paper.
That's what I thought.
See, I at least did have something, but I wasn't allowed to use it, Kane. Because I had previously done it about a year ago.
Yeah, that's unfair.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We wanted to do this because we haven't done it in a long time, and yeah, we haven't. We keep saying that we're going to do this, and we haven't done it in such a long time. Just have a super casual power chat, and we also, I didn't really prepare anything. Like I've got character sheets ready for something if I really wanted to just do it, but it would.
I got nothing. So,
fair. I didn't really have.
I ain't even got a document.
Fair.
I mean, I've got most of like the beginning of a character sheet, rather.
So none of us.
No.
But yeah, so it's nice for us to actually have a chat about this. So I guess we'll actually get into some of the topics. So obviously, the first question I think I'll just open out with is in the terms of like special abilities and superpowers. The obvious question that we always usually do this, and I think that's where I'll start, is in real life, if you could have a superpower, any ability, any special ability, any superpower in the world, in this world that we live in right now, what would you have and why?
Ian, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first?
I don't mind. Do you have one ready or?
I mean, I've had one I've always known I would prefer.
Oh yeah, then go ahead.
Cloning, obviously.
Ooh, okay.
I could do my job 7 times as quick.
You could also just not go to work.
Yeah, you could
No,
actually
one
send
of me
a
could go to work.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Although
Best part is I could make sure all the clones come back to me, so I only have to eat one meal, which would save on money.
interesting. I have
So I could get like seven jobs and just have one of me in the house at all times enjoying myself. Well, the rest of me earns money and then come back, have a meal, and then they can all bugger off, and I could be rich.
Yeah.
In a matter of speaking, soon enough. It'd probably take years, but hey.
I
Yeah.
mean, that's...
I mean, hell, you could just gain money, have one of you studying, so they can get a
one of you
higher
could be
educational job.
Exactly.
And then once they get a job, you get another one to start studying, and then you just rinse and repeat until all of you have way better jobs.
Yeah, or possibly sell one of them to science,
Yeah.
so they can figure out how to do this cloning malarkey,
Yeah.
and then probably become world famous celebrity on television.
Here's where I have the question.
Until you get
therefore.
kidnapped because you figured out you have a superpower.
And then I'd clone 7 of me and punch them in the face like a full-on action movie.
Here's a question I have for the two of you then. And so, because obviously, like, you're talking about it like as if it's like it is the most convenient form of cloning. It has all of the good stuff and none of the bad stuff. My question is, like, you said about like you could send your clones out to do. Well, say for instance, imagine if, like, let's say you make a clone. Imagine if you just woke up and then a person who looks exactly like you then says, "All right, now go off and do my job so that I can laze around and do nothing." What would you say to that person?
I'd say, well, you can do it tomorrow then.
But
I know me. I'd make deals with myself. So we could do it like,
the thing is, you could undo the clone, and you'd know, hang on a second, but if I'm a clone, he might undo me. And make another clone that's
why you have to make agreements with your
Yeah,
you have to come to an understanding. It's like a swap in, swap out sort of situation, right? You have shifts.
Timeshare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We do this. You get these days of work. I'll take these days of work, and you get R&R.
Don't worry, I've seen multiplicity. I know how to do this, Joe.
I also think that you're also figuring out something else that actually probably wouldn't work too well, because again, the other argument is if it's a new clone each time as well. Like, say for instance, you dissipate the clone and you remake another clone or something.
Yeah.
That clone now has all of the memories of you right now, and it's like, hang on a second, if I'm the clone, then that means that you're going to undo me at the end of the day. And then they start, realizing that each time they're a clone, that they're created only to do work for you to then not do work.
I would still probably go and do work. There's only so much time I can stay in the house at one time.
Fair enough.
I'd have one of the clones just stay in the house and watch movies.
So that's what I mean. Like,
have one of them watch all the movies I don't like, just all the stuff I meant to be keeping up on, like Star Trek or My Hero Academia or just anime.
Then the other question,
and then memories in my head.
But again, that's another thing. What if you don't get the memories of the clones? Because again, this is the concept of that's the belief of that's how the power would work. But what if it doesn't?
Well, I guess they
can tell you what happened.
Yeah. Oh, I guess we just all live in one house and just do jobs then, I guess.
But then you have the other issue of then, like, they're eating food and you're going to have to now get 7 times the amount of food.
Yeah, but that means we can all buy one house together.
Or
you can afford a single house.
Hear me out. You just cook efficient meals. If you do something like a curry, right, you make it the right size.
That's true.
Boom. That is arguably everyone. That's everyone fed.
Do you know what? We just eat a lot of stews and leek and potato soup.
Yeah,
if
you just organize, you go, hey guys, we're just going to eat efficient, nice meals, right? then
Do you know what
your money cost doesn't really change at all.
Okay.
I've essentially substituted friends for clone versions of myself.
Yes, you
in
have.
this for
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the worst case
It's
scenario.
just
Oh, yeah,
case
yeah.
scenario.
It's just playing Sims, but with duplications of yourself.
If they
really.
were, because
Worst case scenario, I could do like keeping up with the Kardashians, but keeping up with the Sams.
to be honest, best case scenario is that obviously it's a clone that is always has all of your knowledge, all of your information, is okay with being dissipated by the end of the day, and is okay with doing whatever you tell them to do. And when they disappear, you learn everything that they learn over that day. That is the best case scenario. But I was only asking because I was just sort of wondering, like, what kind of modifiers, like, would you still want this ability? But cloning is very difficult because some of them are like downright difficult. Like, say for instance, like, every clone that you make, you're also like burning yourself down, sort of thing, because of mitosis or something. But once you get into the too sciencey factor of it, it's like, oh yeah, but then what if the power just doesn't exist? So yeah.
or no, it's going to turn into that classic episode where there's clones, where there's one good and there's one evil.
Yeah, that's also true. It's like, what if you do it and all of your bad emotions go into that one? Yeah.
Or worst case, or even worse, they got 7 of them, but they're all different, like emoticons.
Isn't that
like
from,
one's my happy self and one's my angry self?
Isn't that from like oh my gosh, that's from Shaolin Showdown, where like he splits himself into like 9 different versions, but each of them have different personality traits. Like one's cryy, one's like angry, one's erratic, one's like calm and neutral. It's just really weird.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're going with cloning in the version of this game, which essentially, to a higher level, allows to do everything I would want to do with it.
Absolutely. Fair enough. Kane, what about yourself? If you could have any superpower in the real world?
Well, that really depends, because that depends how much do I want people to know I have a superpower.
Valid.
Because, if I want something that I can keep pretty much relatively hidden, right, and I can just say something else to basically get away with it, I'd go with something like adaptive mind, and then just get to super intelligence, so I can just figure out a smart enough ways to get money.
Okay.
And just be able to do whatever I want, because I'd be smart enough to understand everything.
Okay.
So there's that, right? Obviously, if we're going about the route, I just don't. It also depends, because if we're going outside of the power system we use it, it's like, cool, I have super strength and super speed. Well, unless I have the sub-special powers that go along with it, I might just kill myself. So they're not really worth it. Like, unless you have everything, every perfect thing where it's like, you can run at super speed and you basically don't die by running into a bug that is super tiny, but because you're moving at high momentum speeds, you just splat.
I mean, with speedster physiologies, most abilities allow the user to either create a kinetic bubble of energy if they're a speedster, or have incredibly durable physiology if you are a speedster biologically.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Like
they have the extra small ability to go along with it, right?
Yeah.
That protects them from actual physics. So if we're going like that, where I don't care, I wouldn't mind something like okay, there's 2 I can think of immediately, maybe 3. One in terms of just like pure not caring, I can do whatever I'd want. It would take something like spatial manipulation. I got portals. I can literally spend space to my whim. I'm pretty much free to do whatever I want, and there's very few things that would be able to stop me. If I want to go on the other side, I'd either probably take something like Phoenix or biology manipulation.
Okay,
why those things, sure, I've got superpowers, but I can help people with those.
Why Phoenix specifically?
Well, I mean, it's healing, but I also get, I don't know, the fucking ability to be a bird. Enjoy some flying times, can go wherever I want. And I'm basically basically to a certain degree mortal. So if I choose to be, so. Oh.
I'd say that's actually a pretty cool idea, though. I think that's not too bad to have the ability of flight and the ability to create fire and also heal people.
Yeah, I mean, it basically gives me what I want with biology manipulation. Well, I could basically do that, but arguably to better degrees. I could change how people arguably look. I could change any flaws that people have, like physically. I could
Kane trying to play
incurable
God.
things. Well, that's trying to play God. It's just more
No, I know, helping people. Yeah.
Because I couldn't really care to be God. I mean, sure, I know I paint a target on my back immediately by having a power like that, but you just have to be smart enough to build backups on yourself.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think with biology manipulation, one of my more favourite uses of biology manipulation is actually, funny enough, like the backstory of Aspen. So Alex, one of, everyone here knows Alex. Alex, who was a previous player and obviously in some of these podcast episodes, made a character called Aspen Green who had the powers to manipulate plants and the powers to manipulate biology. Aspen was supposed to be like a quite literally like neutral character in the terms of like actually zero binary. And the way that they were able to do this is because they were able to manipulate their biology, they were actually able to remove any and all of those particular hormones from like female and male and re-alter their bone and muscular structure to have it that they were completely neutral. So there was no, iconography towards the biological factors of them being physiologically male or physiologically female. And it was just a very interesting thing of that kind of power could help people completely alter the way that they are feeling, because they can obviously get the things that they need. And also, as you said, like you can help people, you can remove flaws on people's like, oh, I don't like having freckles. Okay, clear skin. Oh, I don't like having this particular type of colouring on my eyes. All right, done. I wish that I had hair on my head. Cool, you now do. It's a great power to be helpful to those who are feeling like as if they are trapped in their biology, and it's such an incredible ability.
Just the only issue of having any of these abilities is once someone important knows you have.
Oh yeah, you're done.
That's the issue, because eventually someone with enough power will come after you to essentially either try and get other people to have the same ability or to forcibly get you to use your ability to do specific things. So that's what I mean. Like, I honestly half the time would not want an actual superpower unless I have a superpower that I can essentially guarantee myself I'm going to be safe.
Yeah.
Because like, sure, with adaptive mind, it's pretty ass boring, right? You just essentially mentally a more adaptive human.
Yeah, you're just a smarter human. Nobody would look at that. And
no one's gonna think you've got a superpower. No,
yeah.
I'm just a smart person. Sure, overnight change might confuse relatively close people, right? But then you can work a way around that.
Some people could just go, "Oh, it's in his brain chemistry. Something just ignited in him." And again, like it's at most you'd get a couple of people maybe taking a few blood samples, but again, like at that rate, you could still say no to that. Like, it doesn't matter at that point, because your sudden boost in intelligence isn't going to get people to, like, just go, oh, we have to now take him in and, like, learn everything about him and autopsy this mother. Like, it's just, no, you are just a much more intelligent individual.
You just what you do is you just say, I'll offer my brain up to science once I die, and then they can figure out after you're dead, and then you can't suffer any of the repercussions.
That's actually really, really interesting idea. That's really cool.
So you just do that, and you get away, and you're the smartest person alive.
Ironic there. I was about to say that's actually very clever.
Yeah. So I mean, like that one's where I'm like, okay, realistically thinking, I would just take that, because that is the. Not only could I theoretically do everything that any other superpower could, because theoretically, if I'm smart enough, right, to a superhuman level, I could theoretically figure out how to do any of these stuff that these other powers could do. Because that's always the thing with intelligence. If you've got enough of it, you can probably figure something out that will work. So, there's that, and then, but if I didn't care about that, and I didn't care about other people, and I just went, hey, I want a god complex, like I said, I'd probably just pick spatial. Because that is basically the ability to meld the world of how I want it. And to basically be, in terms of this, probably mostly unstoppable. If I can stop particles from getting to me.
Fair.
Because if that's an argument, you could argue if you're smart enough, radiation cannot get you.
I'd say for that, I think it's more. It depends.
Yeah, but with something like that, that one's like a real stretch, and probably that one's just more like a fun mess around power. But I think if I'm just thinking smart matter, that's not really a great power to take unless you have a really specific goal in mind. It is just essentially being, hey, I can basically control an important fabric of this reality. So now I'm just going to do whatever I want.
Yeah.
But I guess out of all of those, if I was to pick one answer instead of the multitude I have, it would probably be adaptive mind, then followed by biology, manipulation. Ooh.
I didn't know we could have rankings. I would have chosen more powers then.
I was actually going to say, for mine, I always think super speedster, either being super fast or anything like that, or teleportation. I love the idea of teleportation, and there's one particular type of teleportation that I would like, and we call it everywhere man, but the actual time that I've seen this from. To this level of a degree was actually an ability that was used in the hit film Jumpers, starring Aiden Christensen and Samuel Jackson. If you don't know what that is, it's a movie where the man who played Anakin Skywalker from the second movie onwards, yeah. It basically this kid finds out that he's a jumper. He basically a person who can teleport, and that's it. He can just teleport. They call it jumping, so he can jump from one location to another. He can teleport between different locations, either through memory or through seeing even something as simple as a picture of the location, just concentrating on it, and he can then teleport there. He can teleport to a location he can see, he can teleport to a location that he can remember, and he can teleport to a location that he can imagine, as long as he has a physical image of the location. Because of this, that is a teleportation power that I would love. Imagine being able to just be like, alright, cool, take a picture of that location, stick it up on a wall, right, I can now teleport there. Fast travel is what I would love to have, but instead of having it where it just skips over a certain amount of time, I'm just there as and when I need to be. That power has always fascinated me, because I've always liked the idea of being able to go from one place to another without the irritation of all the transport. However, Speedster has also interested me, because it's the idea of moving faster than most people can perceive, and being able to travel at such high speeds would be so fun. Plus, again, if I can travel at, let's say for instance, I can run at 100 miles per hour, that still helps me get to places a lot quicker. Although I do have to agree with Kane, I would really hope that
incredibly careful.
Yeah, I would hope that I wouldn't have a thing where if I slam into something, I just instantly paste. I would hope that, like,
even if you didn't instantly pace, there's an argument for whatever you hit might
like
pace.
a train, like just run through
I mean,
someone.
Yeah,
I
like
guess I'll-
even if you're fine, you might just accidentally kill a child who's like peeking behind a car or something, right? Like, oh, I need to get my ball smacked.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing with teleportation. What if you accidentally teleport into someone?
So
Because you have, like, say you have a picture of a location, and like someone is literally standing in that perspective.
exact location. Yeah, just
Like,
because there's two.
quantum disentanglement.
Yeah, because there's two different ways that they do it. Because there's one where it's like, because the two things can't overlap, you just teleport near to that location where there isn't space being occupied by another individual. Or, as you said, you teleport immediately into them, and whatever part of them is in that location is either just completely discombobulated or destroyed as you rupture through space. So, yeah, I mean, in Jumpers, they actually have it where there's actually small distortions of space left behind for a few seconds or minutes, depending on how big of a jump it is. At one point, they actually have it where he teleports to a location, and they get a device that actually pulls the space back, therefore locking onto him and forcing him to teleport back to that location. Which is pretty cool, I guess, but still pretty meh. Don't get me wrong, like, I love talking about, like, these things, but I think the obvious one is the... whenever you say that, a lot of people always want the thing where it's like, oh, I want basically the powers of God, where I could snap my fingers and change reality or something like that. But I feel like...
That would just be boring.
That would be... Well, don't get me wrong, it'd be cool.
Also, that's way too much responsibility to have.
Yeah, because imagine, like, say, for instance, the Beerus argument, you sneeze and then suddenly there's no sun. Like...
Even that, right? Even if you have literally the powers of God, you now know at your fingertips you have the ability to solve every issue in the world.
Arguably, yeah.
Like, yeah, and even then, it's arguably, right? And even then, are people going to accept that? Well, technically, you can just brainwash everyone, right? You're just forcibly changing everyone to now have the same views and opinions. If you want,
I will say there is a really cool, concept on this, and I know it's really dumb when I say this. It's from Bruce Almighty, where
love that movie.
Where he has the powers of God. He can literally do anything and everything that he wants. There are consequences to it because he's literally able to control the universe. But there's a point where he tries to make his wife or his girlfriend love him, and he realizes that he can't do it because no matter what he can do, he can't force or control human will. Because it's the basis of, like, God gave humans free will, therefore he will not give it back or take it back.
I mean, God probably could do that. I think God would give him a sample of his powers, considering all the prayers he got were within, like, 3 city blocks, if I remember correctly.
I can't remember, but either...
I think because he even told him you can't control free will.
Yeah.
As one of, like, the two backbones of, like, don't tell anyone you're God now, and don't...
Oh, yeah, you can't tell anyone you're God, and you can't alter free will.
And then he asked, can I ask why? Yes, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, it doesn't give him the answer. It's like, you can't. Can I ask why? Yes, that's the beauty of it, and that's it. That's the end of that scene. I love
good
it.
movie. Watch it again.
Good movie. It's probably one of my favorite comedy movies. It is brilliant. But
and don't forget when he answered all the prayers, when he tried to make everybody happy, and instead that made it all worse.
Yeah.
Because, like, 80 people won the lottery, and they all got, like, $3.
And there was also a girl who wanted, like, her teddy bear or teddy lion to become real, and it became real, and it like started attacking people in their apartment block or something.
I don't remember that.
I can't remember what it was, but she, like, prayed for something to happen, and it happened, and it created, like, a horrible catastrophe or something. There's also there's tons of weird stuff.
It's just that sort of power is like you have way too much responsibility for a human mind to actually be able to comprehensively use that relatively correctly.
Even if you could, like, narrow it down to the fact that, like, you have this ability, but you don't have to have the fallbacks of your body being destroyed by the sheer power that you wield, or even your mind being destroyed by it. But it's still this thing of, like, there is only so much that you're able to handle or wield or manifest before eventually you start realizing that the consequences are too dire.
Well, it's not even that, right? A lot of things that happen in the world, people sort of have this self-defense mechanism where it's like, I don't need to worry about it because there's nothing I can do.
Yeah.
If you have the power of literally like a god, there is no argument for that.
Yeah.
So everything that now happens in the world, you are somewhat going to probably feel, unless you have absolutely no care in the world, you are probably going to feel some responsibility for it.
I also saw one that
we're
was
not getting into. Sorry, we're not getting into like Superman territory because that is one of the things that like writers keep writing about him is how much good should he do and when should he not do good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there was actually a very interesting question because of that. Because going back to what you were saying there, Kane, of this responsibility, is that like I saw something where it was like someone had all of these incredible powers, the power of basically God, and it's like now with this power, what do you do? And you know, again, like people blame him for this, blame him for that, blah 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 blah, and eventually he uses this power to get rid of the power. And then after that, one of the last things is like, you know, like one of his friends or someone around him just goes, "So you got rid of the powers of godhood?" And it's like, yeah. And they just look at him as like, you do realise that now you will be held responsible for everything? No, because I don't have that power. No, you'll be held responsible because you didn't do anything with that power. And it's that thing of like, it's a paradox because you have it, you're held responsible. But the second you have the capacity to have it, and even when it's gotten rid of or removed it, you will now be blamed for not using it to its greatest, and even being blamed for getting rid of it, because it's a power not only too great for someone to have, but it's also a power too great for someone to get rid of.
Hey, as the saying goes, great power, great responsibility.
Absolutely.
But
I love
there's
that.
also
I
the
love that
downside
art
of
melee, don't you, Sam?
fuck her off, Joe. I will say, me and Alex have many things wrong with that movie. I agree that there's so many things wrong with that movie.
Yeah, fair.
Even while I was watching in movie theater, I couldn't help analyze and think many of these things are wrong and dumb and stupid, and make literally no sense, and contradict canon.
Yes.
But anyway,
Sorry, go on.
but no, and you know, power. I was like, is it? You can change almost anything, but you can't change human nature. Like you could try, like if you had godlike powers without controlling free will, you could do all these wonderful things, but it would still probably, most likely, still be bad things happening that you can't stop.
Oh yeah, there would be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is that there's only so much good you can do before what you would do would essentially enslave people, or like not like make people prisoners in their own planet so they can't hurt themselves. There was a good day. You know Isaac Asimov.
Nope.
He wrote all those books about robots.
Oh, what, like the lore of robotics?
You know the three laws of robotics.
Yeah. Sorry,
Yeah.
Yeah. One of those books actually involved that, where robots essentially force people to remain in their homes at all times, so that they could fulfill their first one of don't allow humans to come to harm.
Yeah.
Or through inaction, allow them. That's the thing. If you had godlike powers, that would be almost one of your directives.
There's actually another one that I heard that's actually quite funny, which is imagine if someone actually did one day have the ability to wish for world peace, and all humans on Earth died, because that therefore there's now full peace on the planet Earth.
Yeah, I think wasn't there a phrase like there's always going to be war as long as there's two people on the planet or something.
Yeah, as long as that, well, pretty much, yeah, because at some point there will probably be a disagreement at some point with multiple people.
Yeah.
So there will always be differing opinions. You can't stop that.
I mean, it's also the fact that, like, technically, because that one person can argue against another person, that's just an argument, whatever. But if those are the only two people left in the world or in the country or anything like that, a fight between the two of them is then a war, because that's all there is that left. And it's the same thing with, like, even if there's like a species of one creature, like say for instance it's an endangered species, and you kill the last one, you've committed genocide because it's the final part of that species. You've ended that race. So it's very fascinating to the terms of the determination of scale for that. And yeah, you're absolutely right. Like human nature sometimes can become the bigger problems, but also as you said, like even if you were to cure every disease and every issue whatsoever, there would then still be something for people to fight over.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Well, even then, you'd have to cure the possibility of future ones never existing as well.
Yeah, that's also true.
Again, who knows? Maybe at some point. Actually, I remember that was the thing. Maybe it was like if we had unlimited resources, so there would be resources wouldn't have a monetary value anymore, and we could just do all these things to make our world better without actually having to hurt anybody or go and do anything.
I actually heard a theory on that where it's like eventually people would go insane because there's some industries would have nothing left to do, so therefore people would fight over the fact that there's nothing to fight over. So in other words, that it would be called the boredom wars.
But that's the thing, there'll always be something to do. Maybe just not in those particular industries.
No, absolutely right.
There are always going to be people who thrive or want specific things over others. Like even if everyone theoretically had everything,
I mean,
someone's still going to want more.
It's kind of like that concept that I was talking about a while back about the greed of humanity. That like there's always a power that someone can have or someone can want that they want, because there's always that thing of like, oh, I have this much, you have this much. Oh, then I want more than that, so that therefore I'm above you, so that I know the hierarchy, and I don't want to be at the bottom of the hierarchy. And there's a very interesting thing of like, I once asked some people at one of these sort of like games tables about this. And it was like two friends, and one of them said, "Oh, well, I'd like this superpower," and the other one said, "Well, I'd like that, but this way." In other words, basically almost one-upping his friend. And I also see this a lot whenever I make campaigns, that I see players making characters and then trying to one-up each other either in the sessions or with their character creation or growth.
You have to call me out like that, Joe.
I mean, I didn't actually call you out specifically. I'm actually thinking of two particular brothers that I currently have on another game, and they're trying to one up each other every time. But you know what? Now that we bring this up, Sam cracks knuckles. I think the biggest time that I could have actually said that for you was probably Leah during the villain campaign.
Yeah, true. Very true.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Aldous is definitely up there in the terms of ridiculousness. But I don't know. I feel like Aldous for me is more like, yay, we finally get to test how stupid these mechanics are going to be, rather than we've got another one.
As we've seen, he's not very good at fighting or hurting people.
No, that's true. That's true.
He's mostly good at being utility man.
Yeah. He's good with a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Wow, must suck having flaws. Trying to one up people. Can't imagine.
Who needs that?
Who needs that?
Yeah, exactly. I always am like second fiddle, so I'm fine.
I mean, I was about to say I don't think you are, but then again, like Phileas in the first campaign that you were playing in Arcade, and then Felix in this campaign.
Every time I've always been the second to someone, or lower than that. I'm never at the top, and I'm fine with that. I'm fine with my existence.
I'm fine with
do what you are. You're the Vegeta of the...
So not the most powerful, but definitely the coolest then. Is that where we're going?
Yeah! He's like the most beloved, but not as strong. Close, but not. That. You're the Lancer of the group.
Yep. I'll take that role of pride.
Yeah, that should be your next character's title, just the Lancer.
Lancer. Or maybe I should just be really on the nose and make that his name.
What, Lancer or Vegeta?
Yeah. Have that everyone from his family is just named after a different weapon.
Vancer.
No, he just called Lance.
Lance.
No, hear me out,
Lance.
hear me out. Lance.
Like, Lance Footstrong.
Why would it be Footstrong?
Like, instead of Armstrong, Lance Armstrong.
Oh, okay. That's actually pretty clever.
That was... You know, it's not fun when you have to explain it, though.
No. Sorry
Silly,
for my
but-
dumbness of not understanding.
Good. I dare. Making me have to explain a joke.
I know.
You see, it's funny because he explained the fact that he was explaining a joke.
Anyway.
Anyway.
Yeah.
No, I think, going back to it though, I think it's always quite interesting because I don't know why, but there's always that thing of like adding the concept of the anthropomorphic, or even the over the top, almost either non-scientific or way too scientific explanations as to how a power gains an additional ability is always funny to me. Like, oh yes, well my power is the power of fire, and fire can make things expand. So therefore I have a special ability where I can make things bigger. It's like, okay, but like, that's not how that works, right? And it's like, no, that's how it works. That's how my power works. So,
no, my favorite is I can control temperature, so I can freeze down the very universe itself to stop time.
that's
because everything stops
yeah,
moving.
because I can.
No.
I...
Do you know what that is?
What's that?
It's a wonderful thing called either suspension of disbelief or pseudoscience.
Yes, no, no, absolutely. I love the suspension of disbelief through pseudoscientific explanations. That absolutely,
Yeah.
but also,
Reverse the polarity of the neutron flow, Joe.
but also, what is
Yeah.
it? There's also there's also another thing. There's another title for it where it's like, I guess it's almost a homeopathy, or at least it's almost homeopathic in a way where it's like, oh well, my ability is based on this, and therefore this is that, and it's almost as dumb as someone went, oh, my ability is fire, which rhymes with hire, so my ability is that I can actually not only set fire to things, but I can also hire things out even if I don't own them. It's like, what? Like, it's nowhere near as bad as that, but there are abilities that go way above and beyond with how silly their abilities work.
I mean, to be fair, that would be a hilarious joke in a sitcom. Especially like, I am fireman, therefore I shall make sure to hire all the equipment because it rhymes with my power.
I can hire all the firemen in existence.
My power is fire, so therefore I can hire people and fire people. I also can generate fire.
And I will always lie to people because I'm the liar.
The liar. But also, I am also considered the hottest man alive because I am fire, bro. Like, it's every use of
and I will make sure.
I'm also
I'll make
the
sure
best
to be dead
smoker
first because I'm the dyer.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Also, I'm the best at shouting because I'm the town crier.
Oh, I was going to go with I'm very sad all the time because I'm the crier.
That's actually, yeah, that also works. That also works.
And I like to live in bogs and sludges because I'm the mire.
I knew that you were going with Maya. I knew. Oh dear. Also, I can make buildings and other like large areas explode with a great deal of fire because I can turn them into pyres.
Yeah, and I really love working in small, out of town, towns because I'm the briar.
I mean, not. Also, I'm a great electrician because I'm good with wire.
Okay, I think this stint is left.
Yeah,
us here.
it's done now. It's done. Moving on. No, but what I mean is, like, sometimes people use their abilities. Like, sometimes people will write it that an ability is used in a specific way. That really not only makes sense, but it's also really quite fun. because it's either scientific, pseudoscientific, homeopathic in certain aspects, or even suspends disbelief just enough for where it's like, it kind of makes sense. And I love those ones, but don't get me wrong, I also really like the super scientific ones as well. Like, oh, what's your ability? I can generate electricity. Okay, so I have this weapon. And I know that you're immune to electricity, but I heat up this weapon by infusing it with electricity, so I create electronic heat. The weapon is now red hot. I hit you with it, it hurts you because that it is like molten metal or heated up flaming object or something like that. So, that kind of thing of like, being on point with how you use your abilities is always interesting as well.
To be honest, as you were going to go with the super hype, the super scientific, where like the power is explained of, oh, I have a bioelectric, genome, or like an some kind of organ that allows me to generate bioelectric signals that seems very much similar to electricity, or something stupid like like when they try and explain powers away.
There are ones like that. There are like shows and films and bits and bobs like that.
Spider-Man, relatively close.
Relatively.
Yeah, relatively.
I think,
or at least
at some point in a campaign where it's just like power class time, where you have to get every scientific understanding of powers.
Exactly. We get the tricorder out, scan people, figure out what the hell the metabolism has done, so that they can suddenly create giant structures out of their hands.
I think we tried doing it for a while with like how it works, and after a while we're like, it's just a rough idea works for now. We don't need it to be super convoluted because we wouldn't want it to be.
Superman can fly. Just accept these things.
I can't even remember what their excuse was for how he can fly.
Oh,
because I know at one point they said,
change?
Well, at one point they say it's because of the solar radiation, and another point they say it's because of the Earth's gravity.
I think it is because this was to do with tactile telekinesis as well as those things.
No, I think that's Superboy.
Like, at least the original, do you want me to tell you the original pseudoscience explanation for why he can do all these things?
I know originally it was supposed to be that he was so strong he would just leap miles in a single bound, rather than him actually fly.
Yeah, because they explained that he was just, more evolved on his planet. So they were like cricket. Was it crickets? I think it was. What the ones that are the ones that can leap quite far?
Yeah, crickets or fleas.
I think it was like crickets, and they said, "Oh, he's just like a cricket, or like an ant. Ants can lift many things their size. They've just evolved more on the planet Krypton." That was essentially their explanation when he could just leap and was super strong and was fast.
In the Man of Steel movie, they actually explain roughly how it works, because they say that like the gravity on that planet is like several times the gravitational pull of the current of Earth. Their sun has been a red sun because it is in a dying solar system, because it's an older solar system than ours. So their sun is dying, so therefore their bodies had to adapt to the red sun to gain nutrients from whatever little radiation was coming off of their thing, similar to like vitamin B and all sorts of stuff like that. And also like because that their planet was slowly dying over hundreds and hundreds of years, there was eventually going to be a situation where the chemicals that were coming out of the air were slowly killing them, but eventually they were adapting to that as well. And so over that point, once they get to the point where they get to Earth, the air is actually thinner, so you can hear further. The particular type of chemicals in the air actually enhance him, like make him stronger. The weight of his entire body is actually lesser. So he actually is stronger because everything is like lighter to him, because the gravity is like a lot less. his body actually seeps in the radiation from the sun and actually begins to give his body further greater nutrients. But also, his eyes actually have a unique aspect of being able to see through certain layers of chemicals, and that's why he gets his like ability of like X-ray vision and everything.
I mean, if that's not the pseudoscience explanation for something, I don't know what is. Because
If
that's the way it should be, he should have died of vitamin D poisoning or something when he reached our planet.
no, he just built different.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that they just say, oh, magic space organs allow him to do this. That's all you need to know. Don't think too deeply on it. Here's an explanation that sounds viable enough.
I mean,
just say that.
Any explanation sounds viable enough if you go also because he's an alien, he doesn't have the same issues. Like, because there have been times where other humans have gone to other planets and they've gained superpowers, but it's only because that like of the chemical compounds in the air and stuff like that. I swear there was one thing, I might be wrong, this might be in DC, where someone goes to another planet and they gain superpowers. But they stay on there for too long and they actually begin to die at an accelerated rate. Like they begin to age or begin to get sick because it's kind of like being overdosed over a large portion of time. They're gaining like an overdose of this particular type of chemical and atmosphere, so they actually have to get taken away from the planet.
I don't remember. I don't recall that one.
It's either from a DC comic or something like that. I can't remember what it is.
I would assume DC. That sounds like a very DC thing.
It definitely sounds like a very DC thing.
Either that or a parody of a DC. Like, what if Superman was just crap at his job and just died immediately thanks to radiation poisoning?
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, which would probably be probably be what would have happened if he came to our planet. Again,
there are comics where he does actually die from it. There are actually comics where he dies from like radiation poisoning because he's absorbed too much solar radiation.
Yeah, like All-Star Superman, where he was giving some. I remember it was like some kind of genetic thingy, or something happened where he absorbed too much and he essentially died of it. Yes. I remember Lex Luthor was involved somehow.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, I like it when powers like that seemingly have a limitation or a weakness or a drawback. I've never been a fan of powers that don't have some kind of drawback. Some powers that don't have drawbacks are interesting, don't get me wrong, but like I like it where even the most ridiculous abilities have some kind of drawback to them.
See, the thing I think is the more powerful person, the bigger the need for a drawback. Like, the weaker a power is, like, if a power is kind of okay, then you don't really need a drawback per se.
Yeah, because if it's weak enough, if it's weak enough, the drawback is the power isn't that strong.
Like, it seems to be like Spider-Man and Superman. People Spider-Man fight usually are on par or stronger.
Yeah,
where Superman is the strongest being around, essentially.
I think one thing that has always interested me about Spider-Man in that factor is that Spider-Man is actually he's weaker to like a specific type of repellent because of the spider DNA in him that actually he reacts to like a specific repellent is actually like deadlier poison to him rather than just like something that normally for humans would irritate them and be like, okay, yeah, I need to get away from this. He's like actually coughing up blood if he's near it and stuff, which is quite interesting. Like he was super weak to pesticides, which I think that's kind of cool because again it makes sense to the whole spider aspect. There's a character at one point who has like a werewolf-like ability, and their biggest weakness is that someone uses a sonic grenade and they just immediately go down to the ground like writhing in agony because of their super advanced hearing. Like that kind of stuff, like drawbacks that make sense based on the specialty of their powers. But yeah, like I kind of like that sort of stuff. Like finding the silver bullet that's gonna help you take down this individual, or finding out that there's a limitation to how their powers work.
I mean, I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, and I think you're talking about like the J. Jonah Jameson Jr. werewolf character. I'm assuming.
I don't honestly remember. I don't know if it was a Marvel comic,
Oh.
but
Oh, well, there like in one of the comics, you know J. Joe Jameson, the guy who runs the
yes, I know
Daily
Jim.
Bugle?
Howdy! Of course, I know who Jim
Right.
Jameson is.
His son becomes the werewolf
Weird.
in the comics, and essentially his drawback is he becomes a werewolf, and it just kind of happens.
Okay.
That's the drawback to that part. He has no control over it. It just kind of becomes a werewolf.
Okay, so here's actually a weird thing. We talked about this in the Weakness podcast way back, but here's my question to the both of you.
Yeah.
What is your opinion on a specific material being a weakness?
Kane, do you want to answer first, or do you want me to answer? Kane?
Is Kate still on, or has he disappeared?
No, I'm
Maybe we're
here.
Okay.
Sorry, I mute, and then I have 2 mutes for some reason, and one of them was still on. Yeah, I don't know. I don't mind it, but I think to a degree it can be really boring sometimes,
Yeah.
especially when that weakness can just never come up, or it'll be really situational.
Or even sometimes not even be needed.
Yeah. And it's basically like, oh, we can actually think of another weakness, so we're just gonna come up with this.
Yeah.
And I mean, sometimes it's fair enough because that actually makes sense to the ability, but sometimes it's just like, obviously Superman's the famous example, right, of kryptonite.
I saw one of those like little sketches. It's like, oh, like a glowing green rock. It's like, hey, that's actually quite a rare material. It's like, oh, please, Lex Luthor's been handing that out like like rock candy recently. It's like, I've got a stash of them. Everyone has a stash of them. It's like, like there's multiple variants of them now. It's
Oh, we talk about the JJ Smiles or whatever it's called. Joke ones.
There's a lot of really weird ones because there are the like actual legitimate ones like red, green, silver,
Pink.
blue. We don't talk about the pink one.
I mean, what do you mean? What do you mean? I think pink one's clearly the best one. Is there black kryptonite and white kryptonite yet?
I think there is, but I'm not entirely sure. I think there is black kryptonite.
I know there's gold. Gold makes him lose.
Gold makes him lose his powers, and if you have prolonged enough prolonged exposure, can permanently depower a Kryptonian.
Yeah.
See why though?
Because of multimodal reflection sorting. That's why.
But why does there have to be like 6 variants of them?
There's not 6 variants of it. There's 16 variants. It's different types of radiation, although to be entirely honest, surely that would mean that there would only need to be 5, considering there's the original one, then there would be one for 3 different types of radiation, and then one for like their made-up radiation that they have.
Okay, do you want to know why there's so many types of kryptonite?
Go on.
Please, enlighten me.
Because the authors thought, you know what? It would be fun if X happened, but we don't know how to do X with Superman.
Right,
so we'll say X reasoning is because of kryptonite. But kryptonite does this, but we'll say it's blue now, and it does something funky to him.
That's it. It's contrived narrative control. Yeah, no, I remember that. Yeah.
Like, one of these will make him fat. That'd be hilarious, wouldn't it?
I forgot about that one.
Yeah. This one will make him fat. Why? Because it just does. Shut up. That'll be a fun story.
Funny enough, what was it? Like, pink kryptonite actually has 2 different abilities, and they actually retconned the ability of pink, because I think it was like 2010 or 2008, they actually said that pink kryptonite turns Superman gay. which is
I think it was like 2002.
It was something like actually not that long ago, really. It's
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, this is actually really offensive. And then they actually changed it in I think it was either in Batman Brave and the Bold or another comic or something like that. In an animated series and then later on in a comic, they actually confirmed that Pink Kryptonite does not do that. Pink Kryptonite actually turns Superman into a woman.
Yeah, I think that one. I mean, there's still bizarre things that make no. But you know what? That one at least sounds more like a science fiction thing than it rewrites their sexual preferences.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I mean, this one at least rewrites the genome slightly to turning an X into a Y.
Don't get me wrong, either one can be considered as quite a little, quite a little no town. Like, it just, yeah, please don't do this as an actual thing. But others, it could be considered as quite an interesting concept. It's just that, like, if done in the wrong way, it is quite an offensive thing that you've just created there.
Again, we don't question these things.
We don't talk about them as often as we should.
We don't talk about them.
We don't talk about the pig one.
I mean, and you know what? Let's be fair. Retcon, that's probably different universe by now because we've gone to like 52, and there was the one that came after that, which was the like old world or something, where they brought back the pre-52 universe or something.
We won't talk about it too much because we're sort of running lower on time. But I will say a lot of shows, a lot of comics, a lot of books, a lot of fiction now goes into this thing of like, oh, we're going to do multiverses now. I think that like it's an interesting idea to have, like, oh, this is where this person comes from, and they don't have to have that much ties to this, that, and the other, but it can open up a very big can of worms that makes the story quite difficult.
Why did you have to call me out like that, Joe?
I mean, at least with this Anarche, we haven't done it where his universe is important to the narrative. Because last time we did. In fact, we did it twice. And it took away from the entire rest of the main story that we were supposed to be doing, because it was like, everyone was like, damn, bro, I want to see what's in that universe. But now we've actually had it like, Anarche hasn't gone back to his own universe in years, and he doesn't want to, because that he's, A, he doesn't want to,
yeah,
and B, he might be in a bit of trouble.
Yeah. No, apologies, I'll be back in a moment.
That's fine. But yeah, so I mean, it's... Yeah, multiverses are fun, but can sometimes leave certain situations rather messy.
Like, sometimes the best multiverses are ones where they don't actually connect at all. Like, some of the best multiverses are just like, like what ifs, just variations of stories.
Yeah,
and when they do connect, usually it's for like one-offs. Usually those are the best kind of multiversal stories.
Personally, I like the stuff where it's like, I am from this universe, or I'm from this dimension, or I'm from this world. Oh, okay. And there's either no way to get back, or there's no reason to go there, because it's like, that's not where the narrative is going. It's like, why is it that you're from another world? Oh, well, because that I wanted it where my backstory has some age of attachment to why I am doing the things that I'm doing, but I don't actually have to have it where we have to ever necessarily resolve these things. But instead, my resolution is through being around this party of individuals or something like that, where it's not necessarily I have to go back. It's one of the reasons why I like the concept of a time traveler who's now stuck in the past. And it's like, yeah, we're not going to the future, because if we do, we then sort of take away from the whole point of what we're doing in this current, scenario.
Actually, do you know what's a good multiversal story that did that without having to bring two universes together?
Spider-Verse?
No, there was it was the Star Trek Green Lantern crossover.
Oh, I've heard of this.
Which is a good story, And the way they bring the Green Lantern Corps and like just all the lanterns is essentially their universe went kaput, their universe got destroyed,
Yeah.
and they essentially quantum leaped into the Star Trek universe, which means that they don't have to deal with the baggage of the DC universe. Like, why isn't Superman here? Oh, they're all just dead. It's just the lanterns now are just also here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a way of doing it. Just like, oh, the universe has ended in that one. Well, we're going to jump ship and go to this universe, and we'll just colonize there essentially.
I like stuff like that where they try to create a formula where it makes sense as to why they can't just go back, or why they can't do, X, Y, and Z. Like, it's fascinating to me. I will say some of the more interesting things to me is when people can come up with a way in which they can overcome the seemingly weaknesses of their abilities and powers. Because we were talking about like items that are the weaknesses to people, like materials and stuff like that. Like kryptonite is the obvious one, silver, like holy water, anything like that. Like, but I do quite like it when someone's like, "Oh, my ability means that I can't touch someone." No, my ability means that I can't activate my powers without touching someone. And then there's like a really cool way in which they can actually still do it, where it's like they can do some like really weird ability. Like one of the coolest ones that I saw was someone with like a power of structure, where they have to touch an object to like break down the structure of an object, and they can do it to other people, but they have to touch the object that they're affecting. And if they want to touch a person, they have to actually touch them. And there was this really cool thing where they clapped their hands together, and they slightly discombobulated some of the skin cells on their hands, and restructured it so that then they would sort of create like a little tiny pathway between their hand to someone else, giving them like a reach of like 10 meters. Like it was like peeling off the layer of their skin and turning it into like a thin string. That would then touch someone, and therefore they could use their structure powers on that person and sort of break them down or heal them or whatever. And it's really disgusting, but it's actually quite very clever. So that's I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily a note that we want to end this episode on, but yeah.
I was thinking that's the villain man who took with all the hands of My Hero Academia. I'm assuming.
No, it was a character. Well, actually, he doesn't use it like that, but there is a guy who does have an ability like that, where he can like break things down and stuff like that. He actually uses it at one point on a person, and he combobulates that person and assimilates himself into someone else. And at one point, he assimilates this one guy who has the ability where whatever he speaks, he can force someone to confess. If he says the right kind of words, he can force a person to say confessions. And at one point, he assimilates this person into himself to have like 4 arms, and he can use his power on throughout any of these arms because he's assimilated his flesh alongside this other guy's flesh. And on one of the hands is this guy's mouth, and he then has it that the mouth speaks and uses confession on it. It's a very interesting, very fascinating way in which he does that. It's actually one of the reasons why we have the perk, like structure assimilation, where like you can actually do that to either objects, or you can do it with living people if you have the right abilities or powers for it. But yeah, it's still, to me, it's one of the coolest abilities that we actually have, like for structure. But it's also a really fascinating use. I have seen someone actually do something similar where they wanted to use ranged abilities with biokinesis, but they didn't have biokinesis. They had biological manipulation. They didn't have biokinesis, so it was tactile. So they had it that they manipulated their own body to have it where they manipulated the arm, and it would basically keep growing longer and longer and longer and longer, and then grab onto someone. And at one point, they even changed it where the arm was like a spinal cord, so it was more like a prehensile tail on the end of between their elbow and their wrist, so that then the hand could still touch them. And it's really freaky the way that it was sort of explained, but that's a really cool way of getting around a weakness.
Is it weird? I was more imagining like the Marvel zombie Spider-Man where he shoots out his own veins at people.
Oh, good lord, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I was imagining that where he just aims and veins just shoot out and wrap around someone, and then he uses them.
Uh,
Yeah, because that happens.
I forgot about that. I could have gone my whole life completely forgetting that.
I mean, I won't.
Fair. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for this episode. We've sort of run out of time here, but hopefully anyone who's been listening has been listening to us prattle on and somewhat enjoying our conversations. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening. This has been the Animite Tales podcast, Super Casual Power Chat. If you would like to listen to more of this, or even hear us playing the game known as Animite Tales, which is a tabletop roleplay game, check us out on #AnimiteTales on YouTube, or at Animite Tales on Twitter. Thank you very much for listening, and as always, have a wonderful day.
See you in the future.
Ciao, ciao, for now.